Today I'm talking about non-metallic metal, probably one of the hardest but at the same time best looking techniques if done right. But taking something like this and applying it to this looks more like a puzzle no beginner painter would feel like trying. And I get it. That is why I'm making this video, not to shower you with art theory, but to show you how to paint something cool you can be proud of, without having to spend hours working on a single figure. I am not an expert on non-metallic metal, but I have taken the first step towards learning this technique, and that's what I want to help you with. So if you are a beginner wanting to try non-metallic metal for the first time, or have tried but failed at it before, then this video is for you. I want to start by addressing light placement, which is in my opinion one of the most challenging things when starting with this technique. At least in my case, I used to simply not know where to even begin. Color gradients from top to bottom or how to highlight a cylinder were familiar concepts. But once complex shapes enter the equation, to apply the theory is not as easy of a task as some people make it sound. For the chest armor I'm showing you today, I laid down the first of 3 colors, not really paying much attention to where the light should go, as I didn't have a particular light source in mind. You see, perfectionism keeps projects unfinished. A painted model that isn't flawless still tells a story and builds your skill, because every miniature is practice. If you wait for the perfect project or the perfect technique, you never get to the learning part. So without fear of making mistakes, I applied my first layer, leaving some hints of the undertone showing. Well, the only rule I followed was to paint every shape towards the center of the model. But as you can see, there is no symmetry between them, since I work based more on feel than actual rules. What will really make this technique come to life in the end is contrast, regardless of how light should realistically behave. But before I move into the first highlight, it is important to bring attention to what's happening on my palette. Since I am working with gray tones which are quite opaque in general, an almost 1-to-1 mix with water will not only be opaque enough for now, but also ensure that the paint flows out of my brush without any issues. However, after mixing, I rinsed my brush and picked up just a bit of paint, while twisting and pulling to create a precise tip. This will be extremely important moving on, because in order to create the much needed contrast, I want to place my highlights precisely within the previous layer, not only letting it show in some areas, but also avoiding covering my base tone, which will be the one that stands out the most against my final highlight. This is already evident when looking at how much this dark sea gray shines on the model in comparison to the paint bottle reference you are seeing. There is not much to this step other than the classic highlight within highlight, where that first layer dictates where everything else moving forward will be placed. Of course, more than half of you will be unable to directly apply what I'm showing to your projects, due to every model and armor shape being different. That is why I left all of the footage in and in real time, in the hopes that you can have a close look at what I'm doing and come up with your own conclusions, which you can transfer to your own projects. Which in reality, other than making sure to highlight most of the edges, as I'm highlighting even the ones facing downwards, there is not much theory-wise to what I'm doing other than trying it out. But I don't mean to go ahead and start out with a model in full body armor. Start small. For example, a barbarian holding an axe comes to mind, where the axe will most likely be the only metallic element, while the rest will probably be cloth, leather and skin. However, if you do want to start with a model that's more heavy on metallic details, just like with the one I'm painting today, I suggest you work one area at a time, from start to finish. While inefficient, you will get the satisfaction of seeing your result come to life much faster. Plus, you can focus your attention on one thing at a time, and avoid any wonky areas from distracting you while working on something else. This is also a good side project for when you have maybe 10 minutes of free time. Just focus on finishing one part of the armor and forget about the bigger picture. I assure you that when you complete the model, you'll be amazed at what you did out of what would have otherwise been wasted time. For the final highlight, yes, we're already there, less is more, and keeping them small creates a big impact. However, I realized that placing them within the previous layer can be extremely optimistic, as we start to delve into really small territories. But just adding a small dot within the previous layer is more than enough. What I mean is, this highlight doesn't necessarily have to be the same but smaller. It could just as well be the same size but shorter. While I could have taken measures to squeeze out a further pure white highlight, like I said in the beginning, the aim of this video is to encourage you to take that first step. And that is why I not only kept the color selection down to 3 colors, but also why I left the process blending free, as well as showing you in real time that this is not a matter of hours upon hours. Though in regards to blending, I have done a video in the past, something extremely simple, which would be hard to apply to this amount of detail. But on more open or detail-light models such as the skeleton, it would have its merit, alongside following some of the theory in regards to the shapes in order to properly fill in those blank areas. But let me know if a longer, more theory-heavy video is something that you'd like to see, as well as if any Trench Crusade fans would like to see me tackle the rest of the model. Just comment down below more NMM or more Trench Crusade to let me know. Of course, this is not my first rodeo with this technique, and while yours might not turn out like this, you can expect maybe something more like this, for which you have to take pride in the small wins. For example, I don't know what this is, but the knee and leg area is certainly good enough. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video and that it encourages you to try out this technique. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll get to them shortly.